Chapter 1. The Proposal. The Harvest Festival of Oakhaven had been going for 6 hours, and Sebastian Ashcombe, who had been alive for 412 years and survived 3 wars, 2 assassination attempts, and the entire Burgundy succession crisis, was losing the will to continue. "You are sulking," said Ambrose from the chair beside him. "I am observing. You are sulking in a peasant tavern while wearing a cloak that costs more than every building on this street. It is not subtle, my lord. It has never been subtle. I have been telling you this for a century." Sebastian did not dignify this with a response. He adjusted the cowl lower over his face and surveyed the room. The gilded mug was loud, hot, and smelled of fermented grain and human perspiration. A fiddler in the corner was murdering a jig. A blacksmith was arm-wrestling a man twice his size and losing with considerable enthusiasm. A cluster of village women near the hearth were exchanging gossip with the efficiency of a military intelligence operation. "How long are we staying?" Ambrose asked. He had not touched his ale. He would not touch his ale. He had ordered it for the appearance of normalcy, and was now regarding it with the expression of a man asked to befriend a toad. "As long as necessary." "Necessary for what, precisely? You are a vampire king hiding from a war, in a village that does not appear on most maps. The Durand Coven burned the northern stronghold a month ago. Our people are scattered across 3 countries. Your master of arms is pretending to be a farrier in Burgundy. Your treasurer is living above a bakery in Lyon. And you are drinking watered wine in a tavern that has not been cleaned since the last plague. I am not drinking it. I am holding it. The distinction does not improve the situation." Ambrose closed his eyes. He had served Sebastian for 190 years. He had witnessed the fall of 3 courts, the rise of 2 rival houses, and a regrettable incident involving a cardinal that they had mutually agreed never to discuss. He had catalogued every one of Sebastian's decisions in a private journal that would, one day, make an excellent and deeply unflattering historical record. The current chapter was titled Exile, though Ambrose privately felt embarrassment was more accurate. "I am writing this down," he said. "You are always writing things down. Someone should. Future generations will want to know how the Ashcombe line spent its exile. I will note, sullenly, in unwashed cups." The door to the tavern banged open. The fiddler stopped. The arm wrestlers paused. Even the gossip women turned their heads with the synchronized precision of hunting birds. She was not what Sebastian would have called an entrance. She was what he would have called a structural event. Her dark hair had come free of its braid in a dozen directions, with what appeared to be actual leaves caught in it, like some sort of woodland emergency. Her cheeks were flushed. Her eyes, moss-green and dangerously bright, were focused on nothing in particular and everything at once. She had a tankard in one hand and was using it as a rudder to navigate through the crowd, which parted for her with the practiced ease of people who had seen this before. "An herbalist," Ambrose murmured, watching her. "The village healer, if I am reading the calices correctly. Interesting hands. She has been grinding valerian today. I can smell it from here." Sebastian was not listening. He was watching the woman careen off a table, slosh ale onto a merchant who sputtered in outrage, correct course, and then lock her unfocused gaze onto his corner of the room. He went still, completely, deliberately still. The predator's response: "Do not move, and the threat will not see you." She saw him. She squared her shoulders with the determination of someone about to do something either very brave or very stupid, and marched directly to his table. She planted both hands on the sticky surface, leaned in close enough that he could smell cheap ale and rosemary, and something underneath that. Warm skin, warm blood, a living pulse at her throat that his hearing locked onto without permission. He stopped breathing, not because he needed to, because the scent of her was doing something to his concentration that he did not care to examine. "You," she said. "You are the most beautiful man I have ever seen in my entire life." A murmur rippled through the tavern. Sebastian kept his face in shadow. "It's like," she continued, squinting with the focus of someone solving a problem far above their current capacity. Someone carved a statue of man who has never once relaxed, and then accidentally made it stunning. The cheekbones are doing most of the work. The brooding is pulling its weight. The mysterious cowl is a choice, but I respect it. "Elena," hissed a voice from behind her, a red-haired woman who had clearly been chasing her across the tavern and had arrived too late. "Elena, that man looks like he could kill you with his eyes." "I know," Elena said, not breaking eye contact with the shadow under his cowl. "It's working for him." Ambrose made a small sound. Sebastian ignored it. "Marry me," Elena said. The tavern went silent. Not the comfortable lull of a quiet moment. The deafening, attention-paying silence of 50 people who have just realized they are witnessing something historic and stupid. Sebastian tilted his head. He allowed a sliver of lamplight to catch the line of his jaw. "You are proposing marriage to a stranger." "Yes, in a tavern. It's a great tavern." While significantly intoxicated. "Say yes before I am sober enough to have standards." And the thing happened. It started deep in his chest, a spasm, rusty and foreign, like a mechanism that had seized 4 decades ago suddenly grinding loose. A sound escaped his throat, short, sharp, surprised. Then another, and another. He was laughing. It was not a pretty sound. It was the crack of old wood and the scrape of stone. It startled him more than it startled anyone else in the room, because he had not laughed since a particularly absurd incident during the Treaty of Westphalia, and he had, frankly, assumed the capacity was gone. And then it hit him. Not the laughter. Something underneath it. A pulse of recognition that drove through his chest like a blade, sudden and absolute. Ancient biology responding to something in this ridiculous woman that it had been waiting to find. The room sharpened. Her heartbeat became the loudest sound in the building. Her scent separated into layers, rosemary, valerian, ale, and beneath it all, the warm copper thread of blood in living veins. Every predator instinct he possessed snapped to attention and focused, with the precision of 4 centuries, on the woman swaying in front of him. The word formed before he had decided to speak it. Yes. Elena threw both arms in the air. "Ha! I'm getting married!" Then her eyes rolled back, her knees folded, and she collapsed onto the tavern floor in a heap. The silence held. Sebastian stared down at his unconscious fiancée. The recognition was still pulsing through him, relentless and undeniable, reshaping the architecture of his chest. Beside him, Ambrose set down his untouched ale with the careful precision of a man documenting a catastrophe. "My lord, don't. You have bonded." I said don't. To a mortal. In a tavern. While she was unconscious. A pause. "I am going to need a new journal. Ambrose, the current one does not have enough pages for this." Sebastian looked at the woman on the floor, at the leaves in her hair, at the smudge of dirt on her nose and the tankard still clutched in her hand. Like a weapon, she refused to surrender even to gravity. The muscle at his jaw worked once, then went still. "She cannot feel the bond," he said quietly. "No, she is mortal. She feels nothing. She will not know. No." The red-haired friend had pushed through the crowd and was now crouching over Elena, checking her breathing with the exhausted competence of someone who had done this before. She looked up at Sebastian with an expression of profound suspicion. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Apparently," Sebastian said, "I am her fiancé." "You are not her fiancé. She is drunk. This doesn't count." "Of course," he said smoothly. "A misunderstanding." He stood, adjusted his cowl, and walked out of the gilded mug without another word. Ambrose followed. Outside, the night air was cold and clean and full of stars. Sebastian stood in the street and breathed. He did not need to breathe, but the habit was useful for moments when the alternative was standing perfectly motionless in a public space and alarming people. "You are going back," Ambrose said. It was not a question. "Tomorrow." "She will not remember you." "I know." "My lord, we are in exile. The Durand Coven holds our territory. Half our people are in hiding. We are meant to be invisible. And you want to court a mortal? Sebastian looked at the sky. The stars were the same stars he had watched for 4 centuries, from battlefields and palace roofs and the decks of sinking ships. None of them had ever rearranged the inside of his chest. She made me laugh, Ambrose. Ambrose was silent for a long moment. I am going to need several new journals, he said. Chapter 2. The Courtship. The morning sun was a personal insult. Elena buried her face in her pillow and made a sound that was not quite a groan and was not quite a prayer and was mostly a negotiation with the universe to please stop existing for approximately 12 hours. She remembered dancing. She remembered ale. A great deal of ale. She remembered her friend Margot trying to drag her home and fighting free because she had something important to do. The something important was a blur of shadow and lamplight and someone's jaw and the distinct, burning certainty that she had done something unforgivable. Please no, she whispered to the ceiling. A knock at her door. Sharp. Formal. The kind of knock that suggested the person on the other side had never once needed to knock on anything and was doing it as a courtesy they found mildly distasteful. Go away, she croaked. The knock came again. She dragged herself upright, wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, and stumbled to the door. She opened it into the morning light. 2 men stood on her doorstep. The first was devastatingly, unfairly, unreasonably handsome. Tall, black coat that probably cost more than her cottage and everything in it. Hair like polished jet, silver eyes that looked right through her, cheekbones that should have been reported to the authorities. The second was shorter, grayer, and regarding her with the expression of a man cataloging a natural disaster for future academic study. Good morning, said the tall one. Can I help you? You do not remember. Not a question, a diagnosis. The dread, which had been a low hum, became a roaring flood. The blur sharpened. A dark corner. A beautiful face. A question. Marry me? I did what? Proposed marriage, publicly, with considerable enthusiasm. The ghost of something, not quite a smile, touched his lips. You also described my cheekbones as, I believe, doing most of the work. Elena put her hands over her face. I am going to die. You are not going to die, though I appreciate the gravity of the sentiment. Look, Sebastian, I was drunk, festival drunk. That is a completely different category. It is a temporary madness recognized by the community and also by my friend Margot, who should have stopped me, and did not, and is going to hear about it. Your friend did attempt to intervene. You were determined. I am always determined. It is a character flaw. She pushed her hair out of her face and tried to rally what remained of her dignity, which was not much. The point is, I do not know you, I was not in my right mind, and whatever I said does not count. A vow freely given. Was not freely given. It was given under the influence of at minimum 8 tankards of harvest ale, which is practically a hostage situation. He tilted his head. The movement was slow, deliberate. People did not move like that. People did not tilt their heads like a bird adjusting its sighting angle on something interesting. I find I am unable to retract my acceptance, he said. Why? I would like the opportunity to earn a sober yes, he said, if you will permit it. You want to court me? Yes. You are a complete stranger. A situation I would like to remedy. I am a village herbalist. I make tinctures and set bones, and once I had to remove a fishhook from a man's ear. My greatest ambition is to own a goat that does not eat my laundry. We are not in the same world. And yet you proposed to me. I told you that does not— 1 month, he said. Give me 1 month. She should have said no. Every rational bone in her body was screaming at her to close the door. Why are you standing out there? She asked instead. because the wind was coming in and he was making no move to enter. Something flickered across his face, a hesitation so brief she almost missed it. I have not been invited. What are you, a vampire? She laughed at her own joke. He did not laugh at her joke. Come in, you lunatic. You are letting in the cold. He stepped over the threshold. She would not know for weeks what that invitation had cost him to wait for, or what it meant that he had waited. The shorter man followed, ducking through the door with the air of someone entering a museum exhibit. This is Ambrose, Sebastian said. My advisor. I advise him, Ambrose confirmed. He does not take my advice. We have been performing this arrangement for many years. Charmed, sit anywhere. Do not touch the jars on the second shelf. That is foxglove tincture, and it will stop your heart. Will it? Ambrose said, with a flicker of something that might have been amusement. Elena busied herself with the kettle. Tea? Please, Sebastian said. I have bread and cheese if you are hungry. A fractional pause. I ate before coming. At dawn? What did you have? Another pause. Longer. She turned to look at him and found him examining her cluttered shelves with an intensity that suggested bread and cheese was a topic he would prefer to move past. Broth, he said. What kind of broth? The kind that comes from a pot? She narrowed her eyes. She filed it away. She was a healer. She noticed things. Fine, she said. 1 month. But I have conditions. No gifts that cost more than the building I live in. My roof leaks. My garden fence has been eaten by Mrs. Tyndall's goat for the 3rd time this month. I need a new mortar and pestle. Useful. Practical. Nothing that sparkles. You are rejecting jewels before they have been offered. I am rejecting impracticality. Ambrose from the corner. My lord, she has rejected the rubies before they were offered. I was not aware this was possible. Condition 2. I work every day. People come to me with burns, infections, broken things, rashes, and crises of a personal nature. You do not interfere. I would not presume. Condition 3. If I ask you a direct question, you answer honestly. No evasion. You tell me the truth, or you tell me you cannot tell me the truth. But you do not lie. Something shifted behind his silver eyes. A weight. That, he said quietly, is a more difficult condition than you know. Then it is a good test of how badly you want my sober yes. He wrapped his hands around the tea. He did not drink it. She noticed that, too. Agreed, he said. The first courtship gift arrived that afternoon. 12 bundles of the best thatch Elena had ever seen. He sends his regards, Ambrose said, depositing the final bundle. The thatch was sourced from the lowland marshes, superior reed due to the mineral content of the soil. He researched thatch, Elena said. My lord researches everything. It is both his finest quality and the thing that makes him most insufferable. The second gift, 2 days later, was a perfectly constructed new fence around her garden. It appeared overnight while she was sleeping. There was no note. There did not need to be. The third was a mortar and pestle carved from volcanic basalt from the Auvergne region. Ambrose delivered it with a 17-word explanation of the mineral properties that made it superior to every other mortar in the county. Elena held it and felt the weight of it and tried very hard not to be charmed. She failed. He came every afternoon, never before noon, always left before full dark. She started to rely on it, the creak of her door, the measured footstep, the 2 still figures settling onto the stool by her work table, as if he intended to remain there for the duration of a century and was simply choosing to begin with this hour. He watched her work, not in the way men usually watched her work, which was either disinterested or impatient. Sebastian watched the way a scholar watches a master in their field. He asked questions, not polite questions, real ones. The foxglove, he said on the 4th day, you use it for the heart. In tiny doses. The same compound that stops a heart can regulate one. It is a matter of quantity. And the monk's hood? Wolfsbane. Pain relief at the right concentration, fatal at the wrong one. I keep it locked. She gestured at the cabinet. Why the interest? I have encountered monkshood. The symptoms were memorable. In what context? It was used against someone I knew, applied to a blade. The wound should not have been fatal. The monkshood made certain it was. She stopped grinding. That is not a casual story. No. When was this? Some time ago. How long is some time? He looked at her, silver eyes, steady and unblinking. Longer than you would find comfortable. She filed it, added it to a growing list of things that did not add up. But she kept talking, and he kept listening. And that, more than the thatch or the fence or the volcanic basalt, was the thing that started to undo her. Nobody listens like you do, she told him one evening, without meaning to say it aloud. He was quiet for a moment. Nobody talks to me the way you do. How do people usually talk to you? Carefully. That sounds exhausting. It is. She handed him a cup of tea. He wrapped his cold hands around it. He did not drink it. She did not mention this. They sat in the firelight and the quiet, and Elena thought, what have I gotten myself into? Chapter 3. The Diagnosis. 2 weeks in, Elena began keeping a list. She did not call it a list. She called it observations, because she was a healer and observation was a professional tool, not evidence of obsessive interest in a handsome stranger's increasingly suspicious biology. He did not eat. He made excuses, each more creative and less convincing than the last. He had eaten before arriving. He was not hungry. The bread was not to his taste. He had very specific opinions about bread for a man who never consumed any. He did not drink, not ale, not water, not the tea she placed in front of him every morning, which he wrapped his hands around and held for the duration of her conversation, and then set down, full and cold, when he thought she was not looking. She was always looking. His skin was cold, deep cold, the cold of something that did not generate its own heat. She had brushed against his hand reaching for the same jar, and the shock of it had gone through her like a splash of river water. He never came before noon and always left before full dark, which was the wrong way around for a man who claimed to have business in the evenings. He went still, a held stillness. The kind where breathing stopped and movement ceased, and the person became, for a moment, something closer to furniture than flesh. She had watched him sit in her kitchen and not move, not shift, not fidget, not blink, for a full 2 minutes while she was describing the properties of comfrey root. She was building a diagnosis. She did not yet have a name for the condition, but the list was growing. What was also growing, in a way she could not quantify or catalog, was the fact that she wanted to see him every day. It had started as curiosity, then as habit, then as something she refused to name because naming it would make it real, and making it real would make it terrifying. He fixed things. Not grand gestures, small, specific, useful things. The hinge on her window shutter that had stuck for 3 years was suddenly smooth. The stack of firewood outside her door was replenished before she noticed it was low. The path from her cottage to the village well, which turned to mud every time it rained, had been layered with gravel overnight. How do you know which things need fixing? She asked him. I observe. You observe my broken hinge? I observe everything about your life. He said this with perfect composure, as if it were the most reasonable sentence in the world, and not the most devastating. She turned back to her herbs, so he would not see her face. He began helping in the workshop, badly at first. He ground herbs with the focus and precision of someone conducting a military operation, and approximately none of the required delicacy. Lighter, she said, standing behind him, reaching around to adjust his grip on the pestle. Her warm hand on his cold one. She felt the stillness go through him like a current. He stopped breathing. She could feel it in the absence of movement against her arm. You are doing it again, she said. Doing what? The thing where you stop breathing. I do not need to breathe. That is not the reassuring answer you think it is. She did not move her hand. He did not move his. They stayed like that for a moment that lasted longer than it should have, her warmth against his cold, the rosemary untouched between them. She stepped back first. He exhaled, once, deliberately. Lighter, she said again. Circular. I have ground things before. When? In what century? A pause that was slightly too long to be natural. The 14th. It was a different context. I do not want to know. Wise. On a Tuesday, 3 weeks in, the baker's son fell from a roof and broke his arm. Elena said it while the boy screamed and his mother cried, and half the village stood in her doorway offering unhelpful commentary. Sebastian sat in the corner through the entire procedure, motionless, watching her hands work with an expression she had never seen on his face before. It was not admiration exactly. It was recognition. The look of someone watching another person do the thing they were born to do. After, when the boy was dosed with willow bark and sleeping on her cot, she sat on the bench outside her cottage and shook. She had not shaken during the procedure. She never did. The shaking came after, when the focus released and the body remembered it had been afraid. Sebastian sat beside her, not touching, close enough that the cold of him reached her skin. You were extraordinary, he said. I was terrified. Those are not mutually exclusive. I hate the sound, she said. The bone. I hear it in my sleep sometimes. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I hear things in my sleep too. When I slept, which was some time ago. You do not sleep? Not for a long time. How long? The kind of long you would find uncomfortable. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. She looked at him, at the silver eyes and the too pale skin and the stillness that had stopped feeling wrong and started feeling like his. She reached out and took his hand. Cold, riverstone cold. 4 centuries of cold. He looked down at their hands like he was trying to understand something he had given up understanding a long time ago. Your hand is warm, he said. Yours is not. No. She held it anyway. His fingers were perfectly still for a moment, and then, slowly, deliberately, like a man remembering how to do something he had not done in a very long time, he closed them around hers. On the 4th week, she tested him, not because she needed confirmation. She had known since the 2nd week. The test was a formality, the way a healer runs a final examination before speaking the diagnosis aloud, because naming a thing is its own kind of threshold. She set bread and cheese on the table between them. Good bread, soft-crusted, still warm. Eat with me, she said. He looked at the bread the way another man might look at a diplomatic crisis. You have not eaten in my presence in a month, not once. Condition 3. Direct question, honest answer. Sebastian picked up a piece of bread. He bit into it, chewed. His jaw tightened, a muscle working once. And then he swallowed with the controlled precision of a man swallowing something his body fundamentally rejected. Good bread, he said. You look like you are eating a rock. It is excellent bread. You are going to spit that into a handkerchief the moment I turn around. A silence. Then from the corner, He has been using my handkerchief, Ambrose said, without looking up from his book. I have lost 7 this month. Sebastian closed his eyes. I have a condition, he said carefully, that makes consuming solid food inadvisable. I know what the condition is. He looked at her. The careful composure shifted. I beg your pardon? Sebastian, I have been diagnosing you since the morning you showed up at my door. The cold skin, the not eating, the not drinking, the not breathing, the sunlight schedule, the way you heard the Tyndall boy's arm break from across the room before I did. She set her tea down. I am an herbalist. Diagnosis is what I do. I had you sorted by week 2. The bread was a formality. The kitchen was very quiet. You knew, he said. I knew. For how long? I just told you. Week 2. And you did not say anything. I was waiting for you to tell me. It is condition 3. You tell me the truth, or you tell me you cannot tell me the truth. I wanted to see which one you would choose. And if I had chosen wrong, then I would have known something important about you. He stared at her. She stared back. Ambrose turned a page with the deliberate care of a man trying to become invisible. You are not afraid, Sebastian said. I am an herbalist. I know what monkshood does to your kind. I know what foxglove does to a heart. I have an entire cabinet of things that could ruin your day. I am not afraid. I am well supplied. Something happened on his face. It started at the jaw, a release of tension she had not realized he was carrying. It moved to his eyes, which went from guarded silver to something open and raw and bewildered. And then he laughed. Not the sharp, startled bark from the tavern. Something quieter. Something that sounded, for the first time since she had known him, like relief. Week 2, he said. Week 2. And the bread test was a formality. I wanted to watch you eat it. It was, I confess, slightly entertaining. Ambrose, Sebastian said, without looking away from Elena. Please note that our cover was never intact. I have noted it. Extensively. The chapter is titled The Bread Incident. The longer conversation happened that evening, by firelight, and it was nothing like Sebastian had expected. He had imagined this moment for weeks, the confession, the horror, the careful retreat. Instead, Elena sat across from him with a cup of tea and a piece of parchment, and asked him questions the way she would ask about a new strain of foxglove. How old are you? 412. What do you eat? Blood. Animal or human? Either. Human is more sustaining. You have been hunting. At night. That is where you go. Deer, mostly. The forest here is well stocked. How often? Every few days. Longer if I am careful. She nodded. Healer nod. Processing, not judging. Sunlight. Burns. He held up his right hand. Faint, barely visible lines traced across the knuckles. These are from a morning in 1614, when I miscalculated dawn. 400 years ago. They have not faded. Silver? A myth. Garlic? Unpleasant but not dangerous, mostly the smell. Crosses? Holy water? If they worked, 3 popes I have personally met would have had very different evenings. She almost smiled. She wrote it down. He told her the biology. The cold skin, no circulation to speak of, heart that beat once an hour if it bothered at all. The enhanced hearing, her heartbeat from across the room. The stillness, not a choice. The default state of a body that did not need to fidget or shift or breathe. The healing, fast, thorough, undone by monkshood and a handful of other compounds she would already know. He listed the compounds. She took notes. You are taking this very well, he said. I have had 2 weeks to process. You are the one who has been sweating through a confession I did not need. I do not sweat. Figuratively. I do not figuratively sweat either. You have been figuratively sweating since day 1, and we both know it. He conceded the point. She poured more tea. He wrapped his cold hands around the cup. He did not drink it. She did not mention it. And the evening settled into something that felt, for the first time, like what it actually was. 2 people sitting in a kitchen with no pretending left between them. Nobody talks to me the way you do, he said, later, when the fire was low. How do people usually talk to you? Carefully. That sounds exhausting. It is. She looked at him across the table, firelight on his pale skin, silver eyes steady and present. I am not leaving, she said. He did not move, but something in his silver eyes broke open, just for a moment, like a window in a building that had been shuttered for a very long time. I am glad, he said. The words cost him more than she would ever know. What he did not tell her that evening was why he was in Oakhaven. He told her the biology. He did not tell her the politics. He did not tell her about the war, or the exile, or the Durand Coven, or the fact that by sitting in her kitchen every night, he was painting a target on her cottage. He would come to understand later that this was the lie that mattered, not the vampire, the danger. Chapter 4. The Vanishing. The days after the reveal were the best of her life. She had expected the knowing to change things. It did, but not in the way she feared. The pretending stopped. The excuses stopped. The careful performance of normalcy fell away, and what was left was clearer and stranger and better. He came after sundown now, openly. No more noon arrivals and dusk departures. He appeared at her door when the stars were out, and stayed until the sky began to lighten, and she adjusted her sleep to meet his waking, and neither of them commented on how naturally the shift happened. She asked him about everything, the healing, the senses, the centuries. He answered, she catalogued. She was the first person in his very long life who had treated his biology as a subject of study rather than a source of fear, and the novelty of it did things to his composure he was not equipped to manage. "Can you hear the owl?" she asked one evening, sitting on the bench outside her cottage. "Which one?" "There is more than one?" "There are 4, 2 in the elm by the well, 1 in the barn roof, and 1 approximately 300 yards into the forest, heading northwest." She stared at him. "You can tell direction?" "I can tell species. The one in the barn is a tawny. The forest one is a long-eared, different wing cadence." "That is absurd." "It is Tuesday." "What does that have to do with—" "Nothing. I was identifying the day. It is a thing I do when you say something that requires me to respond, and I do not have an adequate response. I state a fact." She laughed. He did not know he was funny. He never did. The fracture came 5 weeks in. It came because of Ambrose, who had been standing in the doorway of her cottage one morning, writing in his journal, when she asked a simple question. "How long are you staying in Oakhaven?" "That depends on my lord's assessment of the tactical situation." "Tactical." Ambrose looked up. The pen stopped. "What tactical situation?" she said. "It is not my place to—" "Ambrose, Condition 3 extends to you. Sebastian agreed to honesty. You are his advisor. The condition covers the advisory." "That is a generous interpretation of the agreement." "I am a generous interpreter." "What tactical situation?" The silence lasted long enough for her to know the answer was going to be bad. "We are in exile," Ambrose said. "My lord's coven, House Ashcombe, is at war with the Durand Coven. The Durands burned the northern stronghold a month before we arrived here. Sebastian's people are scattered across 3 countries in hiding. His master of arms is pretending to be a farrier. His treasurer is living above a bakery. We came to Oakhaven because it is small and remote and unremarkable." He told me that, the small and remote part. What he did not tell you is that Renaud Durand is actively hunting him. Sebastian is not hiding for comfort. He is hiding because if the Durands find him, they will kill him. Or worse, they will use the things he cares about to force his surrender. The things he cares about. Ambrose looked at her. The meaning was not subtle. "Me," Elena said. "I am the thing they would use." "You are the first thing he has cared about in 4 centuries. If the Durands find this village, they will not find a man in exile. They will find a king with a weakness, and they will exploit it." The cottage was very quiet. "He did not tell me this," she said. "No. He told me what he eats. He told me about sunlight and silver and 3 popes. He did not tell me that by sitting in my kitchen every night, he has been painting a target on my cottage. He did not wish to frighten you." "I am not frightened. I am furious." She waited for him. He arrived at sundown, as he always did. He crossed the threshold and stopped. He could read rooms the way she could read symptoms. and this room was saying something he did not like. "Sit down," she said. He sat. "Ambrose told me about the war." The stillness changed. Not the held bow kind, the caught kind. About the Durand coven. About the exile. About the fact that Renaud Durand is hunting you. About the fact that I am, apparently, a tactical liability. She set her hands on the table, palms flat. Condition 3, Sebastian. Direct question. "Elena, did you know when you started coming to this cottage that your presence here put me in danger?" The silence answered before he did. "Yes," he said. "And you came anyway?" "Yes." "Every night, for 5 weeks, knowing that if the wrong people found you here, they would find me too, and you did not tell me." "I did not know how to tell you." "You open your mouth and you say the words. You have been speaking for 4 centuries. You know how sentences work." "I was afraid you would ask me to leave." "I might have." "I know." "That was my decision to make, not yours. You told me what you eat and how old you are and how sunlight burns your hands, and I sat across from you and took notes and told you I was not leaving. You had my trust. And while I was trusting you, you were withholding the one piece of information I actually needed, which is that my life is in danger because you are in it." He did not move. His hands on the table were perfectly still, and his silver eyes were steady, and the composure that she had watched crack open over weeks was cracking again now, but in a different direction, not toward warmth, toward shame. "You told me about the biology," she said. "You skipped the part that mattered. The biology is what I am. The war is what you brought into my home." The fire crackled. She could see his jaw working, the ghost pulse at his temple, the muscular tells of a creature that could not blush or sweat, but could feel the full weight of being wrong. "You are right," he said. "I know I am right. I should have told you. I should have told you before the first week was over. I chose not to because I am a man who has been making decisions alone for 400 years, and I did not know how to share this one. That is not an excuse. No, it is an explanation. It is a poor one." She looked at him, at the man who had researched thatch and fixed her hinge and learned to grind rosemary and listened to her talk about comfrey root like it was the most important subject in the world. "If you lie to me again," she said, "about anything, by omission or otherwise, I will put monkshood in your wine and I will not feel guilty about it." "I understand." "Good. Are you asking me to leave?" She looked at the stool, at the cold cup of tea, at the volcanic basalt mortar on the shelf. "No," she said. "I am asking you to stay. Honestly, this time. With all of it. The blood and the sun and the war, and whatever else you have been choosing not to mention. No more selecting which truths to offer." The muscle at his jaw released, something in his silver eyes that she had never seen. "All of it," he said. "All of it." And he told her. The Durands, the stronghold burning, his people in hiding across 3 countries, Lord Beaumont posing as a wine merchant, the treasurer above the bakery, the war, the politics, the history. Every piece he had been withholding since the night she proposed to him in a tavern. She took notes. The sign started 3 days later. Ambrose stopped writing in his journal. He told her about tracks in the forest. 3 sets, not animal. She started noticing the changes in Sebastian. The way he went still at unexpected sounds, head tilting, listening beyond the range of human hearing. The way his gaze tracked the tree line outside her window. The way his hands began to close into fists when he thought she was not looking. "Is someone coming?" she asked. "It is being handled." "Sebastian, I will not let them near this village. That is not what I asked. It is the only answer that matters." She let it go. She should not have let it go. She woke at dawn to a cold cottage and an empty stool. She knew before she opened her eyes. the quality of the silence was wrong. His silence had a weight, a presence, the quiet of a room occupied by something that did not breathe. This was just absence. The fire had burned to ash. The tea he never drank was not on the table. The stool by the window was bare. She got up, checked the door, checked the workshop, checked outside. Nothing. No note, no message, no Ambrose. Just a village waking to an ordinary morning and a cottage that was, for the first time in 2 months, exactly as empty as it had been before a vampire king walked into it and rearranged everything. She stood in the doorway and stared at the road. "He left," she said aloud, to no one. Margot found her 2 hours later, still standing in the doorway, hands clenched at her sides. "Elena. He is gone." "The handsome one?" "They are both gone, Sebastian and Ambrose. No note, no warning, no goodbye. Just gone." "Maybe he had to." "He had to nothing. He promised me honesty. He sat in my kitchen 3 days ago and swore no more omissions, and then he left in the middle of the night without a word." Her voice was steady, clinical, the healer's voice that held through surgery and only broke after. "Elena, come inside." "He sat in my kitchen every night for 2 months. He held my tea, he fixed my hinge. He told me about the war and swore he was done hiding things. And he left without a note." "Come inside." Elena came inside. She sat at the table. She looked at the empty stool, the cold hearth, the shelf where the volcanic basalt mortar sat like a monument to something that had evaporated. "I am going to be fine," she said. She was not fine. The days passed, 3, then 5, then 7. No word, no message, no sign. Margot brought her food. Mrs. Tyndall brought her goat for company. The baker's wife brought bread Elena did not eat, which she thought was deeply ironic given the circumstances. She worked. She set bones and mixed tinctures and treated rashes, and swallowed her feelings with the efficiency of a woman who had been doing it her entire life. On the 9th day, she ground monkshood and thought about whether she would take him back. She decided no. Then yes. Then no again. Then she ground the monkshood too fine and ruined the batch, and sat on the floor and pressed her hands over her face, and did not cry, because she was a healer and she did not cry. And the shaking came, and Margot found her, and Margot held her, and neither of them said a word. On the 12th night, she heard a knock at her door. Chapter 5. The Return. It was not a polite knock. It was not a formal knock. It was the knock of someone who has been standing outside a door for a very long time, trying to decide whether to use it. Elena stood in her kitchen with the monk's hood still under her fingernails, and her heart doing something violent in her chest. She was furious. She was terrified. She was, despite every rational bone in her body, desperately hoping. She opened the door. Sebastian stood on her doorstep. He looked like a ruin, not the poetic kind, the real kind. His black coat was torn at the shoulder, slashed clean through, the fabric stiff with something dark. His hair was not swept back. It was loose, tangled, falling across his face. There was a cut along his jaw, already healing but not healed, the skin knitting together slowly, which she knew meant the wound had been inflicted with something that resisted his regeneration. His eyes were the wrong color, darker than silver, the amber still in them, the predator close to the surface and not fully pushed down. But it was his hands that stopped her. His hands were shaking. In 2 months of knowing him, she had never seen his hands move without intention. They had been still when he held her tea, still when he ground her rosemary, still when he pressed them against the wall to keep from coming toward her blood. The stillness was fundamental to him, the baseline state of a body that had learned over 4 centuries to hold itself in perfect control. His hands were shaking. Ambrose stood behind him. Ambrose looked exhausted, which for a vampire meant something had happened that surpassed 3 centuries of experience. His journal was clutched under one arm. His coat was intact but filthy. He looked at Elena over Sebastian's shoulder with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Relief. Pure, unguarded relief. "You came back," she said. "Yes," Sebastian said. His voice was rough, lower than she had ever heard it, raw. 12 days. Yes. No note. No. No message, no word, no explanation, nothing. No. She stared at him, at the torn coat and the healing cut and the shaking hands. "You left me," she said. "Yes. You left me, and I did not know if you were alive or dead, or if alive was even the right word. And I spent 12 days grinding monkshood and treating rashes and pretending that the empty stool in my kitchen was not destroying me. And you are standing on my doorstep, covered in someone's blood, and you have not yet told me why." "Elena, inside, now." He crossed the threshold. She stepped back to give him room, and he filled her cottage the way he always had, too tall, too still, too much. Except now the stillness was cracked, and the too much had a tremor in it. Ambrose followed. He sat in his corner without being told. He did not open the journal. Elena stood with her arms crossed and waited. Sebastian did not sit. "The Durand Coven," he said. "They found me." "I know. Ambrose told me about the tracks. They did not just find me. They found you. Scouts in the tree line, 3 of them, watching the cottage, watching you work, cataloging your routine, your schedule, your name." The cold that went through her was not from his proximity. "They were going to use me," she said. "They were going to take you, use you as leverage, force me to surrender." His voice was very low. "I could not allow that." "So you left." "I drew them away. If I stayed, they would have come to the village. If I ran, they would follow. So I ran." 12 days. 12 days. There were not just 3 scouts. There were 27. Renaud Durand had sent a full hunting party. They chased me north, away from here. I let them chase me because every mile they followed me was a mile further from you. And then? His jaw tightened, the ghost pulse at his temple. His hands, still shaking, closed into fists at his sides. "And then I stopped running," he said. The kitchen was very quiet. 27 vampires, Elena said. 27. And you. And Ambrose. He glanced at the corner. Ambrose was effective. "I broke a man's arm with a volume of Tacitus," Ambrose said. "It was the Annals, a first edition. I have not forgiven the universe." "You killed them," Elena said, not a question. "I killed 23. Ambrose handled 4. Renaud Durand himself was among them." Sebastian's voice was flat now, the tone of a man recounting facts he did not wish to examine. "He has been building power for a century. He burned my stronghold, he scattered my people, and when he found me, he was going to use you to destroy me. So I ended him." "And the blood on your coat?" "His, mostly." She looked at the torn coat and the healing cut and the shaking hands. She was looking at a man who had killed 23 creatures like himself in 12 days to keep them away from her cottage, and who had then walked back to her doorstep and knocked. "You could have told me," she said, and her voice cracked. The clinical hold broke. "You could have woken me up and said I have to go and I will come back. You could have left a note. You could have told Ambrose to stay and explain. You could have given me something, anything, 1 sentence, 1 word, so that I was not sitting in this kitchen for 12 days wondering whether the man I love was dead." The word sat between them. She had not meant to say it. Sebastian's hands stopped shaking. "You love me," he said. "That is not the point. It is the only point. The point is that you left without a word because you decided unilaterally that disappearing was the right way to protect me. You did not ask, you did not tell. You decided, the way a king decides, the way someone who has been making decisions alone for 4 centuries decides. and you forgot that there was someone else in this now. He was very still, the stillness of a man who has been told something true and is absorbing the weight of it. You are right, he said. I know I am right. I have been making decisions alone for a very long time. I know that too. I did not know how to make this one with you. I knew if I told you, you would have wanted to help. You would have mixed compounds and built plans and walked into danger with your satchel and your determination and your complete refusal to be afraid, and I could not let you be in the same country as Renaud Duran. So you left to protect me? Yes. Without trusting me enough to tell me. The silence was long. The fire crackled. Yes, he said. That is what I did. She looked at him, at the man who had killed for her and hidden from her and come back to her, at the shaking hands now still, at the silver eyes with the amber fading. If you ever do this again, she said, I will make you eat bread every day for a year. Something broke behind his eyes. A sound escaped him, half laugh, half something else. And then she was crossing the kitchen, and he was crossing the kitchen, and her warm hands were on his cold face, and his still hands were finally moving, finally, cradling her like something he was terrified of breaking. Your hands are warm, he said. Yours are cold. They are always cold. I do not care. She kissed him, not gently, not carefully, with the force of 12 days of grief and 2 months of falling, and one stupid, brave, reckless woman who had chosen this impossible man and refused to let him disappear. He kissed her back, with 400 years of silence breaking. When they finally pulled apart, she was breathing hard, and he was not breathing at all, and both of them were exactly where they were supposed to be. You are staying, she said. I am staying. Forever. As long as you will have me. I already told you. She took his cold hand and held it against her warm cheek. I am not leaving. From the corner, a sound. The scratch of a pen. Ambrose had opened his journal. Chapter title, he murmured, writing with the steady focus of a man who has been waiting to document this moment for some time. The return. Not the herbalist? Elena asked, her voice thick with tears she was not shedding. No, Ambrose said, and looked up, and he was smiling. I am saving that one for the history books. Chapter 6. Epilogue. 3 months later, autumn. Elena was organizing her workshop shelves when the question she had been carrying for weeks finally became too heavy to hold. How long do I have? She said. Sebastian, who was sitting on the stool by the window reading a letter from Lord Beaumont about wine shipments and the slow process of reclaiming their territories, went very still. I am not ill, if that is what your face is doing, she added. I mean in general. How long before I am old and you are not? He set the letter down. A lifetime, he said. Your lifetime. 50 years, 60 if I am lucky. Yes. And you will be exactly this. Yes. She shelved a jar of dried chamomile with unnecessary precision. Have you done this before? The human thing? Once. What happened? She grew old. I did not. The way he said it was very simple, like stating the weather. So in 50 years, I will be gray and stooped, and you will still have those cheekbones. The cheekbones are not going anywhere. That is profoundly unfair. Yes. She turned to face him. The workshop was warm with afternoon light, the indirect kind that he could tolerate. Ask me, she said. I have not said anything. You are thinking so loudly I can hear it, and I do not even have your hearing. Ask the question. The muscle at his jaw worked once. There is an alternative. I know. It is not a small thing. I know. It would change everything about what you are, your body, your relationship to sunlight, to food, to sleep, to time. You would lose things, the warmth, your heartbeat. And I would gain things. You would gain time. You would gain me, for longer than either of us can calculate. Is that what you want? He stood, crossed the workshop to her, stood close enough that the cold of him reached her skin. What I want is irrelevant. This is your life, your body, your heartbeat, to keep or to give. I will not be the one who asks. Then I am asking. Elena, turn me. The workshop was quiet, sunlight on the herbs, dust in the air. It hurts, he said. I have set bones while children screamed. I know what pain sounds like. I am not afraid of it. It takes days. I have supplies. You will not be the same. I do not want to be the same. I want to be yours, on equal terms, for as long as the term lasts. He looked at her for a very long time. Then he reached out and took her face in his cold hands. You are sure. I have been sure since the tavern. I was just drunk enough to say it and too sober to know I meant it. He laughed, quiet, warm, the sound that had started everything. Then yes, he said, when you are ready. I am ready now. Now? Did I stutter? Ambrose from the doorway cleared his throat. I do not wish to interrupt, but I need to know whether to title this chapter The Turning or something more historically specific. How about the Herbalist? Elena said. I told you, I am saving that. For what? Ambrose looked at her. At the woman who had drunkenly proposed to a vampire king, diagnosed his condition in a month, survived his disappearance, taken him back, and was now asking to be turned with the same practical determination she applied to grinding rosemary. For the whole book, he said. Later, much later, the cottage by firelight. Elena sat on the edge of her cot, flexing her hands. They were pale now, not the warm, herb-stained, sun-touched hands she had known her entire life. Pale and cold and luminous, the way his were. The calluses were still there, the muscle memory of 1,000 hours of grinding, but the skin underneath was different, harder, colder, new. She could hear things. The hearth fire, but not just the crackle, the specific frequency of each flame. The village, 200 yards away, every heartbeat in it. The forest, further, the deer, the owls, the wind through every individual leaf. Sebastian sat beside her, still, patient, watching her process with the same focused attention he had given her from the very first day, when she was grinding valerian and he was pretending to be human, and neither of them knew that a drunk proposal in a tavern was going to end here. How do you feel? He asked. She looked at her hands, then at his. Side by side, they were the same temperature for the first time. Cold. Still. Matched. Hungry, she said. That will need addressing. There is a deer in the forest, northeast, about 400 yards. She paused. I can hear its heartbeat. Yes. That is going to be useful for diagnosing patients. He laughed. The real laugh, the warm one, the one that had started everything. She stood. The world was sharper now, every edge and shadow and scent in perfect focus. The workshop shelves, the jars she knew by touch and taste, the mortar and pestle, the herbs she had spent her life learning. She would still know them. She would know them better. She would know them forever. Sebastian, yes, I can hear your heart. He went still, the surprised kind. I beg your pardon? Your heart. It beats once every 43 minutes. I have been counting. It is extremely slow and deeply weird, but I can hear it. He stared at her. Something happened on his face that she had never seen in 3 months of firelight and kitchen stools and cold hands on warm cheeks. Something open and raw and utterly unguarded, as if the last wall in the building had come down. Nobody has heard my heart in 200 years, he said. Well, Elena said, I can hear it now. She reached out and took his hand, cold on cold, for the first time. Equal. Come on, she said. You can teach me to hunt. And then you are going to grind the rosemary, because I still think you are doing it wrong. From the corner, the scratch of Ambrose's pen. He was writing. The chapter was titled The Herbalist. He had been saving it. It was worth the wait.